What's up, you beautiful chuds? Welcome to the Let's Talk Horror channel. Welcome to the Creep Zone, and welcome to Tales from the Creep Zone. This is my side series where I'm going through every episode of every season of the Tales from the Crypt series. Of course, I am absolutely loving revisiting this truly iconic series. It's a show that I absolutely love. It's a franchise that I absolutely love. Tales from the Crypt is, as I've already said, so iconic. So, of course, as I keep saying, if I'm going to go through this all again, why not bring you along on the journey? And that's exactly what I've been doing. And we have already reached the end of season 2. That's right. These 3 episodes that I'm doing on this episode takes us to the end of season 2, and then of course we move into season 3, and then we keep going and keep going until there's no more. So let's get right into it. Let's get into episode 16 of season 2. So episode 16 is called Television Terror. Shock journalist Horton Rivers, played by Morton Downey Jr., leads the TV crew into the Ritter boarding house for a live paranormal broadcast. Producer Sam, Dorothy Park, faces its escalating disturbances threatening control of the show. This one we get the intro that's essentially like the Blair Crypt Keeper project. The Crypt Keeper's got sort of like an old camera sort of thing that's setting up like, you know, the old school aesthetic, the very nostalgic aesthetic of sort of handheld horrors, found footage, the old school sort of cameras that make everything just look absolutely great. Well, this episode's got loads of it, which is brilliant. As I said, Morton Downey Jr. is sort of the star of this one. He's the TV host in it, and he feels like, and already we sort of get into it, like after the intro of him sort of hosting the show, we already get into the fact that he feels like a proper Tales from the Crypt character, but also there's something a little bit tragic about his character in it because of everything that he sort of goes through. But then you start thinking about the everything that this guy's probably put everybody else through, so it's sort of just desserts, so to speak. But he's a real piece of shit straight away. And I did have to check as well, Morton Downey Jr., because straight away you're like, surely he's got to be related to Robert Downey Jr. It can't be a coincidence. It's absolutely a coincidence. They're not related at all, apparently. I like how this episode, they do a really good job of filming everything that makes it feel really authentic. So you've got the two sides of the authenticness in regards to like visually. You've got the fact that we have got the feed of them doing the show. So like we're seeing them do the show and it feels sort of really real, really authentic. And then we see that footage, it looks great. But then when we see the playback from the other camera that's being used, you know, the camera that's they're going around, that, you know, this whole haunted house and where everything happens, and then it goes all sort of Blair Witch, so to speak. Both sides of it look great. So it's a really good visually episode. I liked everything, how like everything looks really good in this, but everything feels exactly sort of how it should be or would be if they're making something like this, and how that's obviously presented to us. So I absolutely love it. And of course, just that look of, you know, using these sort of handheld cameras and those old school handheld cameras, it just, I always say this, but it adds that extra level of ultra realism to them, to everything. Even though, like now, we live in a modern day where everything is got sort of 4K and so on like that, and we don't really like have that. But yet, still, like if you use today's modern cameras, it still doesn't have that feeling, that capture that sort of tension and dread, and the fear factor and the fear element that everything is real as much as it used to with those old school cameras. It's really weird because, you know, you would think that it still would, but I think the advancements in technologies and so on, just going back to that old school look, just makes everything just look and feel more real and more gritty and terrifying. And they use that to effect in this, but of course they have used that through effect throughout horror. It's just a shame that we're in a time now where you're not really going to get that much, because that was part of the past, part of the history of horror and cinema. And so we're sort of past that now, and that's a shame because, you know, it's going to be difficult to go back to it in modern day when you're using old school cameras like that with holding an iPhone, you know, smashing the shit out of an iPad or whatever, or a MacBook or something. You know, it's we live in different times. But this episode, going back to the episode, looks great. The lighting's great as well. Just everything visually is so pleasing about this episode that it works really, really good. I also like as he's going around um, the house and so on when he's going through sort of like the places in the house, like in this place this happened. We keep getting sort of like the quick cutaways of showing the murders that happened in the house, and I like that because they don't shy away from the brutality of it. Although it doesn't really make clear whether that's just for us as the viewer or whether they're like trying to add that in as almost like clips for the show, which they absolutely wouldn't be able to show because of how brutal they are. But I'm assuming it's just to show us as the viewer of like the horrible things that happened in there because of what happens later. Um, Also, this episode is interesting because when you watch this episode, if you know what Ghostwatch is, Ghostwatch is a sort of like it was like a TV show that came on. I think it was like in 1992, and it was absolutely incredible. Michael Parkinson, which is mad that they got him, but it adds the credibility to it. But it basically it was where they made out that they did like a live broadcast of a paranormal event, a paranormal ghost sort of why can't I think of what it's called? Basically, they go to a house that they say is haunted, and they go to the haunted house and then do it, broadcast it live, and then of course everything went mental. Now, obviously, this came out in '92 when you were a kid in the UK, and this was on. You thought that it was real. Loads of people thought it was real. It was played as if it was real. This episode aired in 1990, so before Ghostwatch. So it'd be interesting to wonder whether this was like the inspiration of it, whether somebody saw it and was just like, it'd be cool to do that for real, which would be awesome. I don't know if that's the case, and probably not, and I'm probably just reaching, but it would be cool that if this episode was like the reason that we got Ghostwatch, which is absolutely great. And of course, if there's people out there who don't know about Ghostwatch, haven't seen it, make sure you do. It's just such a fantastic almost experiment, so to speak, but it's done so great, very similar to this episode. You know, there's a lot that goes into it, stuff like that, and it goes absolutely wild, and of course it goes very far-fetched, which takes it out the element of realism, but it's so well done, and this episode is so well done. So it's interesting to wonder whether where this came out, before, whether you're like, well, maybe it's the inspiration, but probably not. But it'd be nice if it was. They have this like medium ghost sort of spirit guy. I don't really know what they call, but the guys that are always like fucking wild on ghost programs things. But they have one of them on it. But I like him because he's completely deadpan. He's not really taking any shit, and he's basically been like, he has like a great line that I should have written down, but it's something like, he's just like, oh, are we in danger here? And then he's just like, you're in danger, like as soon as you step through the house, step foot in the door, or something like that. Great line, sets it all up. And this guy's just like, probably just like, I'm done with this shit because I know exactly sort of what's going to happen. I don't know if he can tell the future, but he can figure out ghosts. So yeah, but they this like really basically kicks off, and it's very quick pace, very quickly moving, and when things do start to kick off, it's just him that goes in there with a cameraman. It all kicks off, of course, something bad happens to the cameraman, and which is once again a visually like really like obviously stark imagery, pretty dark, but also once again it's about how they do it, and it sort of comes out of nowhere where his legs are sort of hanging and then he turns around. But basically, instead of them getting him out of there, they lock him in there and he can't get out of there, and then of course he's at the mercy of these ghosts, and it's really messed up, this episode. And once it does go, I mean, they must really fucking hate this guy. Like, this guy must do some really horrible shit for them to do what they do. But then at the same time, it's sort of like they probably don't expect to happen to him what happens to him. But it's one of those sort of like, it's an episode that's not necessarily full of all good people because of the decisions that they make. You know, it's not just him being an arsehole. There's other people that are always almost like they're doing things because he's an arsehole to them, but also they're trying to climb the ladder, and get higher ratings, right? You know, and higher viewership and stuff. But obviously it goes as wrong as they possibly could. But inside the house, obviously it goes absolutely mental, which I love, and it goes mental pretty instantly. When it happens, it happens. You know, you've got stuff going everywhere. We get a granny with a chainsaw. Well, what's not to love about this episode? And then of course at the end he meets his demise, but in a horrible way. He ends up getting hung outside a window, but it looks really real. They did a really good job of that, but also like you're sitting there and you're like, yeah, that's pretty messed up. And then once again you do get some of the shots of it on, you know, the old school cameras as well, which adds to the element of like, or everything always makes it look like you're watching something real, and you're watching things that you shouldn't watch. And like when you get shots like that, you're like, yeah, that's they make just instantly makes it more messed up. So one of the things about this episode as well is that it's only just over 20 minutes, and that's like a bit of a shame, because this is one of those ones that you could probably like, it'd be interesting just to watch it, you know, a longer episode about this, or you can stretch this out, and obviously other things have over time into a movie. A lot of them of course are shit, but something like this, you know, with the good performances, like I said, Morton Downey Jr., he does a very good job at playing, obviously, not only the arsehole, but he's very good at playing the host. But like I said, I think he was like a real host. So it wasn't really different. But he was a real host in real life, I think. So it's interesting that he could have come into this and then like been shit, because obviously, you know, he might not have been an actor or might have not wanted to be an actor, but in this he's actually really good in everything that he does, so fair play to him. But yeah, this is only like 20 minutes, and it's a little bit of a shame that it's that long. I wish that it was longer, basically. But honestly, that's pretty much the only thing that lets this episode down, is the fact that I wanted more of it. But the thing is what we do get is pretty relentless and pretty damn awesome, and looks visually bloody brilliant as well. And also at the end, the crypt keeper saying that he hangs around in all the wrong places is super dark, but also at the same time pretty damn funny. So this one, it gets 5 out of 5 creepy cackles. There's not been loads of them, and of course at the end of this episode I'm going to give you my favourite, as we're at the end of season 2. I'll give you my favourite episode of all season 2. Is this going to be it? We'll find out. Let's get into episode, what's that, 17? 17 already, blimey. Episode 17. So episode 17 is My Brother's Keeper. Siamese twins Frank Duran and Eddie Duran navigate daily life while debating risky separation surgery that could permanently change their shared existence and force irreversible consequences for the brothers. Both of them, both actors, do a really good job in this. Straight off the bat, you can tell they've got really good chemistry. One of them's a douchebag, one of them's a good guy. Maybe that will change at the end. We'll soon find out. But they play off that really well. They do have very good chemistry together. It must have been fucking really hard work, you know, like doing this episode, or like the way that they are, the almost choreography of them moving together and so on like that. It must have been really hard work. So fair play to them, because they do a good job. And as I said, they're both good. You know, the dickhead guy, the douchey one, the douchey side, he is actually really funny. He has some really funny lines in it, or the way that he's performing those lines, the actor's performing those lines, he's almost very blasé about not giving a shit, especially with the things that happen later on in the episode. Really good performances in this one, although one of the things that they can't have choreographed in it, there's a bit where they go to a club and there's a dance sort of scene. The dancing's fucking whack, as we used to say. It's really bad dancing. Yeah, it's shit. They also do at one point, it's really weird, even though they're adults, they have like pajamas that look like kids' pajamas. And I don't really understand that, because they would have to get their pajamas made for them. So why would they ask to have like kids' pajamas with like helicopters and stuff like that on them? I know that sounds pretty cool when I say that, when I'm like, helicopters, that I want that. See the pajamas, you'll know what I mean. Like if you're bringing a woman back to, you know, your pad, and you put on those pajamas, like that's an instant turn off, unless they're weird. But I like this one because it's a unique idea, or not even necessarily has to be a unique idea of like Siamese twins. It's just the way that it's told. They make it sort of fun. They make it unique. You know, the whole like they don't want to be together. Well, one of them wants to be separate, the other one doesn't, and it's the fight of back and forth between them. And like I said, the good performances, the good chemistry between them, and then the other side characters in it, you know, do a good job. It just sort of this episode works really nicely. It sort of flows really well. So I really like that. Also, like little things like the fact that when one of them gets drunk and then the other one gets drunk, or you know, and of course they set that up for the thing that happens at the end of the episode. But I do like that. But then you also start thinking about like Jesus Christ, like you could really do some fucked up things. Like if you're like a horrible one to the good one, you know, you can do some pretty fucked up things. I mean, they do pretty fucked up things in it. There's a bit where he's sitting with the woman in it, and next thing you know, there's like, you know, it's all fucking bondage and all that sort of stuff. And you're like, blimey, he's got to sit through that. And now he's making his missus sit through it, but there's a little bit more on that. But there is some really funny, um, funny sort of things that happen in this. There's some really funny lines. There's a bit where the woman that he meets and stuff, she can't sort of take, you know, being there with the bondage or anything anymore, which is fair play to her, you know, fair enough. But she leaves, and as they leave, he's drunk and he's sort of thing, and then the brother turns around and he's just like, well, you got to fall in love, I got a boner. And line is obviously absolutely hilarious. Very 90s. Boners is such a 90s word, but still a great one. But yeah, so it's an interesting story. But it's even if it's a story you're like, well, this has been told before. That's not what unique is about it. It's just like the way that they create this story for Tales from the Crypt is what makes it interesting and intriguing, and then unique in that way. Um, and then, of course, we get the twist sort of in the middle as well, where basically the douchebag brother has hired this woman to basically make it, force him, well, think that the guy, the good one, it's getting confusing, is falling in love with her, or they're in love, so they can get married. And then he can sign this document because it's separate, you know, so they can get separated, sign the medical, whatever it is. Um, and then it turns out, yeah, that she's been paid to do it, but then she actually, of course, you know, has fallen in love with him somehow. And he, you know, it's weird, but oh well. But she has fallen in love with him, and then it obviously takes a turn for the worse for her, because the brother, the douchebag brother, is now realised that he's just like, you know what? If I can't get rid of him now, I'm never going to get rid of him ever. So he ends up shoving an axe. You know, well, it's not a bloody axe, is it? It's a meat cleaver. Right into the back of this woman that he's, you know, he's paid to bloody, you know, fall in love with her, and it didn't quite work. And then this sends the good brother, for now, on a spiral, who ends up taking loads of pills and drinking loads, and then he signs the thing, and then you think at the end of it they're both still stuck together, they survived it, so to speak. But of course the twist is the fact that they've actually been separated. But then the good guy, now has become the douchebag. So now we almost don't get that ending where it's, well, like, you know, that he's going to go on and be a douchebag and do horrible things. So it's not necessarily a good ending, because now we've got another douchebag, because of now he's decided to just take on the form of being horrible, because he's obviously, you know, lost the woman that he loves, and now he's just like, well, what the fuck, and he tries chatting up. But there's some lot of really good stuff. There's a fight scene in this as well, which is really fun, but also like cheesy. But it must have been, you know, hard work for them to do. As I said, like, it just must have been pretty hard work for them to do this. But it's a pretty dark episode as we go through it, sort of as we get to the end, you know. But once again, it's a good one. I really like it. This one I'm getting 4 out of 5 cackles, creepy cackles. Really good episode, good performances, and feels, like I said, unique. They do the job, and yeah, it's just a very well structured episode, and pretty unique. I almost gave this the 5 out of 5 creepy cackles, and I'm sort of leaning towards that as well. But I think that the ones that we've had sort of before it, once again, the episode that came before it is 5 out of 5 creepy cackles, the television terror. And do I prefer that one to this one? Yeah. So this is why it gets 4 out of 5. So there we go. There's that one. Let's move into episode 18. So, episode 18 is The Secret. Theodore, a young orphan, is placed with the wealthy Colbert family under Miss Hagstead's, one of them, supervision, overseeing the transfer, but unsettling the truths emerge around the estate, placing his survival and identity under escalating threat. This episode sort of starts out, and I don't really give a shit, which sounds really horrible. Like, it feels like I've seen this before on other things, and but also, like, when it starts out, so you just, it's one of those things where you hope it changes. Like, there has to be, of course, a main arc, a main story, a main reveal, all that sort of stuff, because it's Tales from the Crypt. So you just, of course, you stick around for that to see what that's going to happen. You get the woman that goes to adopt this kid, looks just like Cruella de Vil. Surely they must have done that on purpose. I don't know, unless this is just how, like, rich people look in the 90s. I don't know. But yeah, it is an episode that has some highlights. Like, it is an episode that has a few bits like that are interesting. Of course, one of the things is, like, the production design is really good in this. Like, we get some, like, big, like, houses, like the house that they stay in. The orphan home sort of thing is very cinematic, and then we get, obviously, when they go to the actual house where they're staying, and he gets locked in the room because, of course, the underlying thing is, something's wrong, and you pretty much sort of, what is going to be as you go through it. It doesn't take long for you to go, I pretty much know what's going to happen here, which is one of the downfalls, because it's pretty predictable. But the house that they actually stay in, it looks really good. It looks very cinematic. It's a very cinematic episode. It's got very good lighting in this episode as well. It also, the loads of it makes you remember, like, feel like Home Alone and stuff. But it's probably the fact that it's like the lighting, the way that it looks, and there's loads of toys everywhere. Makes you sort of feel like it's like Home Alone in a way. Also, it might have come out the same year as Home Alone, which I could be absolutely completely wrong and making bullshit. But coincidence, maybe. But it looks very cinematic, this episode. But the problem with this episode is that it just feels like it sort of lacks in sort of story. There's a bit, basically, I mean, also, like, it's the way that it's shot is also quite cinematic, in regards to, like, almost every shot feels like it's a fucking Dutch angle. Everything's tilted, so they're proper, like, going for it in regards to, like, production wise on this episode. But it's the episode sort of itself doesn't necessarily work, and I think that's, for me, with this one, the biggest problem. It's not bad, but it's good, but it's predictable, and that's what makes it, like, not so good. But also, like, they keep on feeding this kid sweet treats, cakes and everything. So that something's up with that. Although all of the cakes that he's getting look absolutely bloody lovely. Like, I'd love probably pretty much every single one of these cakes, even if I don't like it. They look so good that you're like, yeah, I'll probably eat that either way, and then pass out afterwards. There's loads of shots. I did talk about how well this episode is, or the production design. They do a lot of shots where they're supposed to be nighttime shots, and I'm pretty sure they're the absolute opposite of nighttime shots. It looks as though they were filmed during the day, and all they did was put a fucking blue filter over the top of everything. I'm pretty sure that's how they did it, because that's, sometimes you can't film during the day, especially if you've got kids as well on it. Sometimes there's like, oh, we can't film at night. Oh, well, we have to do it in the day. Shove this blue filter on everything, so it looks like shit. And it does. It looks bloody awful. So you go from really good production design and good camera work and all that sort of stuff, to a lot of the episode, when it's at night, looks like shit. And it really does. There's a bit where they sing like a birthday song to him. Of course, you would think it's going to be Happy Birthday, and I'm pretty sure Happy Birthday is not copyrighted, so you can sing that. But they sing a weird birthday song, and it was really off. Like, it didn't feel right, because you're like, why are you not just singing Happy Birthday to him? Because they were singing like something weird. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason to it. I don't know. But it looked really weird. And then Larry Drake, he's the guy that plays the butler, who pops up obviously in lots of movies, noticeably in Sam Raimi's Darkman. But he's in this. But he's actually really good in this. Normally, he's one of those characters that plays like bad guys quite a lot. In this, he's not playing a bad guy at all. But he's really good in this, and I liked his character in it. And of course, he's essentially ends up being, I mean, basically what happens in this is that the kid ends up being a werewolf, and the people that have adopted him are vampires. And essentially, I'm assuming that this guy that is like Larry Drake, who's like the butler, is basically like a familiar, basically, who is at some point going to be turned. And that was going to be basically the night that he was going to become immortal. Although it's not night, it's day. They're just pretending it's night. And the kid was assuming, I think he was going to be the one that Larry Drake basically turns or whatever, or, or kills or whatever, to become the vampire or whatever. But it was just very really predictable. Like, you knew something was off, and then you just thought to yourself, do you know? And well, I know that I thought to myself, and I'm like, well, do you know what? I already know what's going to happen here. And then of course we do get, nearer the end, and when we get to the end, and then the kid actually does turn into, a werewolf, and then we get probably the best bit of this episode is we get a really really cool neck ripping. So, like, he obviously, as he turns into a werewolf, he bites the neck of the Cruella de Vil woman, and it properly, like, rips it up. Great practical effects, looks awesome. Would have looked a lot better if it didn't have this crazy blue filter put over the top of everything. But yeah, that bit really cool. And that's what's funny as well, because this episode actually feels more like, rather than a Tales from the Crypt, it actually feels more like a Goosebumps or Are You Afraid of the Dark? It feels like more like one of those episodes than it does a Tales from the Crypt episode. And in fact, it probably could have been one of those episodes, unless, apart from the awesome neck ripping at the end of it. If you didn't have that, this feels more like a kids episode. Um, so yeah, it's okay. It's not great. That's pretty much where I am with this one. So I gave this one 3 out of 5, pretty much standard, which is weird because it was a weird episode to end on, because there are other episodes. I mean, there are, I've ranked other episodes higher, and there are some episodes that you think to yourself that would have been a fantastic episode to close out the season, and they did it in season 1, even though there was only 6 episodes. An episode like, say, like All Through the House or something like that, you end on an absolute fucking banger. In season 1, they didn't do that. The last 2 episodes of season 1, should have been like, in the middle, even though there's only 6 of them in season 1, but the order wasn't right. And it feels like this in this season as well, where as we get into these last 3 episodes, you've got 2 absolute bangers and then one that's all right to close off the series. So yeah, there are definitely better ones to end the series on. But yeah, this one gets 3 out of 5 creepy cackles. So there we go. That is the end of season 2. When it comes to favourite episode, this is going to be really, really difficult because, of course, first season, not so difficult because there were 6 episodes. Now and going forward, the seasons get longer, and we jumped up from 6 episodes to 18 episodes. So there were 3, from what I remember, there were 3 that got 5 out of 5. I could be wrong. People can tell me they're wrong if they've kept up with the series. There was 5 out of 5 Creepy Cackles episodes were Three's a Crowd, Corman's Calamity, and Television Terror. There might have been more. I might have forgot them. And this was really, really tough. And I think it's tough because the ending alone of Three's a Crowd, irrelevant of whatever else I say, the ending of Three's a Crowd is the best ending of Tales from the Crypt, or my favourite ending of Tales from the Crypt that there has been so far, because it's the most devastating for me. The fact that the guy has not only ended up killing his wife, or his wife or partner, I can't remember what it is, but killed her. But also at the end of it, you think the surprise is obviously, almost the predictableness of, like, he drags her in, it's like happy birthday and all sort of stuff. But the added blow of the fact that he was then going to be a father, and no longer, like, that the impact of that alone is so insane and so dark and so sinister. And that whole episode is such a great episode, and it's performed really well and structured well, and it's just a fantastic episode. And it'd be interesting, like I said before, it'd be really interesting to know what people's favorite episodes are, because, like I keep saying, like, I haven't looked at any rankings. I don't know what other people think about these episodes, but it's interesting because I can see Three is a Crowd being the type of episode that people maybe don't like because it's not supernatural. It's not very Tales from the Crypt-esque, so to speak. It almost feels like a drama that you would get on TV. Just it's very, very dark and very sinister. But it's an episode that I really loved and really worked really well. And I gave it 5 out of 5, and it is still at 5 out of 5. And the ending alone is just so impactful. But, and of course, the other one I gave was Television Terror. That was the other one. I've given 5 out of 5. Absolutely love it. But Corman's Calamity, this episode sort of really has it all. We go proper meta. Also, Corman's Calamity would have been a perfect episode to end season 2 because of, it's almost starts out, it's very tongue in cheek, so to speak, because as I said, it's meta, because we go into the offices of the workings of Tales from the Crypt. You got signed the Tales from the Crypt from the door. They're working on the Tales from the Crypt comic. It's so much fun when you do that and you're bringing meta into it, and obviously this was like 1990 as well, so they're ahead of their time going down the meta route, and that's why it would have been a great episode to end the season on. But as an episode, it is literally, it's got the meta side of it. It's really, really fun. It's shot well. You've got great practical effects and great like monsters in it, you know, that look fantastic, and that there adds the element of not only fun but adds to the element of the fact that it feels very Tales from the Crypt like. You also get the questionable morality of the episode where you're supposed to really feel like you're following a good person because it's somebody that's being treated like shit and beaten down by his partner in it. And but the problem is that in the episode throughout it, he's making bad decisions himself. He is a dickhead in the episode because he has an affair with her, and at the end of it, he leaves his wife to get killed by the monster that's like her. That essentially he's drawn it because that's how he sees her in a way. He's like, I'm drawing her like a monster, comes alive and kills his own wife. Well, he doesn't, but the monster does. But essentially, sort of he has because he's drawn it and it's come to life. So he's essentially almost, a murderer because he knows that this is coming to life and he's made a monster to kill her basically, and leaves her. And then as they're getting in, oh, what's that noise? Nothing, don't you worry about it, let's go and bang. And he gets, he gets what he wants at the end of it, but he's not even a good guy. So he's one of those things where it almost throws that sort of like it feels like a very different Tales from the Crypt episode because obviously it's it's showing Tales from the Crypt, it's a meta episode, but at the same time it almost goes against the type of like quite a lot of things where like you're supposed to be really following like a good guy who's a proper nerd, and he ends up being a nerd who's not necessarily that nice, who gets the girl. Almost very comic book esque. So it just all works, and it's a really fun episode, and I love it. And you get loads of awesome fucking monsters in it, and it's cool. So as much as I absolutely love Freeze the Crowd, really, ultimately, it comes down to the fact that Corman's Calamity feels like a proper and one of the best examples of a Tales from the Crypt episode, and I love it. So that's my favorite of season 2. Let me know what your favorite of season 2 is as well. Of course, on the comments or any of the socials, you can go on there and tell me what you think about it as well. But that's it. That's season 2. I hope that you're enjoying this sort of like go through this run through of the series of Tales from the Crypt. Of course, I'm enjoying it, and then we move on to season 3, and I can't wait. Also, I did forget to mention that the Terror television episode is actually an episode that I watch quite frequently throughout my life on Halloween as well. So that's a good episode as well to add to your like Halloween watch list. If you're looking for things to watch when it comes to Halloween season, just pop on that television terror episode, and it works really well for getting you in the mood for Halloween sort of stuff. But there we go, throwing that in there. Didn't need to, but guess what? It's my show. I do what I want. But there we go. I hope you're enjoying it, and we move on to season 3. For anybody that has joined me on this journey so far, thank you. For those that are joining now, go back and watch the others so you know what's going on. But until next time, stay creepy, fuckers.